I remember from growing up, and hopefully that will spark some of you all to do the same, because Jimmy was a great guy, and boy, there's so many good memories that I'd like us to be able to share with this afternoon while we still have time together. So, Brian, take it away.
Hang on just a second. I didn't tell you what, I saw this on Jimmy's shelf all the while. I never imagined him wearing it, but I'm glad I'm wearing it right now.
Yeah.
And one more question, one more favor. At the end of the song, I'd like us all to say together, "We love you, Jimmy." I want to hear y'all. And a 1, a 2, a 3. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out to the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jacks. I don't care if I ever get back, for it's root for the Cubbies. If they don't win, it's a shame, for it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. And we love you, Jimmy.
Cheers, folks. Cheers.
Very good. The story I wanted to share, and thinking about that part of the eulogy where I said Jimmy just had this innate sense of what was right. I go back to a wedding that Mom and Dad took us to in Chicago. I think it was one of Helen and Chuck's kids, but it was possibly one of our Katraki cousins, Uncle Bud and Aunt Carolyn's kids. But we were at a very nice country club get together, and me and Robert and Stephen and Jimmy were at one of the kids' tables, or a table that wasn't with anybody else, and we're wearing the normal blue blazer and khakis that we all wore as kids. And I remember Stephen elbowing Jimmy, and he gets Jimmy's attention, and he shows Jimmy how you can take your bread and break it apart and dip it down in your soup and eat it. And it'd be so much better that way. And Jimmy, knowing that was not proper for the elegant place we were, he's like, no.
I have a little, I'm conflicted a little about this, because Richard, our brother Richard, told this story once recently, and he told it from his perspective that he was the one there. And maybe we just have this collective memory of this story, but Jimmy was always, he hated storms, thunderstorms, tornadoes, and I think a lot of it related back to 1974 when the big super event of tornadoes came through and we got caught, and we didn't have a basement. And Jimmy, I think he always harbored some fear of storms because of that. But Jimmy and I drove to Chicago together, and Jimmy would not ride in the front seat no matter what. And so he's in the back seat and I'm driving, and the whole way there, I learned a couple lessons about Jimmy. One was there were very few storytelling on Jimmy's part. It was more question and answers. What's the name of the high school in Marion County, Indiana? What's the nickname of the mascot? What's your mother's name? What's your mother's maiden name? He always had questions, and typically he knew the answer to the question before he asked it. So we're driving, and it's Indiana, so it's flat, and you can see there's a storm up ahead. And Jimmy, as David mentioned in the eulogy, always had an uncanny knack for the weather, and so he puts the blanket over his head in the back seat, and he's sitting with it over him, kind of like a ghost. He's kind of like up over him like this. And I'm speeding, and I get pulled over. The trooper comes up to the car, and now it's starting to come down. The rain's coming down, and he's license and registration. And why do you have a guy in your back seat? A blanket over his head. And I explained to him, I said, it's my brother, and he's very scared of storms. And he didn't really buy that at first, and he said, no, he needs to take the blanket off so I can see what's going on. And I said, Jimmy, lift up the blanket so the policeman can see your face. And Jimmy kind of looks out and he says, is it raining? And the officer said, yeah. And he says, is there lightning? And the officer says, yeah. And Jimmy says, is it bolt lightning or flash lightning? And he's still, like this. And the officer says, bolt lightning. And he says, is there hail? And the officer said, man, just go on.
where we just had the funeral. And, you go there and it's this very, reverent place. I mean, it's a church and everything. And the confirmation's a very sacred sacrament, And the bishop was there, bishop of the diocese. And all of the kids that are in Good Shepherd's 8th grade class who are getting confirmed, after the ceremony, they're getting their photos taken with the bishop because it's this big honor. He's the bishop. He's a very important person within the church hierarchy and everything like that. And of course, Jimmy's there because he was there at all of the family events. Anything that somebody was getting any kind of distinction or anything like that, Jimmy was always there to support them. So he's there, right? And everybody's getting their photos of their kids with the bishop, and they're showing their respect and everything. And Jimmy goes up and he gets a photo of Thomas with the bishop, and the bishop is there in his whole finery. He's got the hat, he's got the robes and everything like that. And so he gets the photo, and then he goes, another photo. And the bishop's like, okay. And Jimmy hands him the camera. Gets next to Thomas. And the bishop is there, and he's taking the photo. It never occurred to that guy that anybody was going to ask him.
And Jimmy was doing the picture, and he said, instead of everyone say cheese, he said, everyone say Mahatma Gandhi.
What, honey? Here, let's put this up.
Look at my hat.
That is really cool.